I said to him that it was unfortunate that he kept making the same decisions over and over and over again that were preventing him from getting the results that he wanted. But unfortunately, his pattern was a common pattern that the majority of people have. They just don't even know that they have it because it's unconscious. And it is so normal in the average population of society. And that was the reason why he couldn't get the life that he wanted and will probably keep stuffing it up and will never really achieve what he's capable of. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Underestimated Entrepreneur. Wanted to talk today about the reason why, even though most people who are listening to this have big goals and big dreams and are really ambitious and want to achieve things, the truth is that the majority of people won't achieve the life that they want. And it's unfortunate because they have the capacity to do it. They just don't have the mindset to do it. And they will just keep doing what everybody else does and then convincing themselves that it's normal and so it's okay. And that justification is the same reason why, even though most people have big goals, big dreams and want to better their life, the majority of people won't better their lives. They'll just keep going around in circles, just getting ahead and then fucking it all up again and then starting back at the start. And for some people, this might be a 1 year cycle. It might be a 6 month cycle. It might be a 5 year cycle. For some people, it's a 10 year cycle. But it's pretty obvious that most people in our society have these patterns that keep limiting and hindering their success, and they just don't know it. So let's talk about it. So what normally happens is that for some weird reason in our society, a lot of people think that they have to have a reason to grow. When it comes to growth, pain has to be a critical factor. So I'm in pain, I need to get out of pain, so therefore I'll grow just enough to get myself out of pain. And then in order to grow again, they need more pain. So they keep going through this cycle of pain and then no pain, and then pain and no pain, and pain and no pain, and pain and no pain. Or they have problems and then they get themselves out of problems and then they create problems again and then they get themselves back in problems. And so there just ends up being this shitty cycle that they're consistently in, where they never really get ahead because they have to keep self-destructing in order to grow. Now, I've already spoken about this multiple times on the podcast where, laws of nature are human laws and laws of the universe are universal laws. So therefore humans abide by those same laws. And there are lots of laws of physics and chemistry and biology that humans keep trying to fight against and then wondering why their lives are fucked up or why they fall apart or why they're not achieving what they want. But it's because they keep trying to defy universal laws or laws of nature. So one of those is gravity. Like, we don't try and go against gravity. I mean, we can fly and things like that in planes, but we know that if we don't have the propulsion forward and all of that sort of stuff, then we're going to crash into the ground because gravity is always there. Now, there are so many other laws that people in their life keep trying to break and then wonder why their life turns to shit. But it's because they've never been taught the majority of these laws, hence why I study them, why I teach them. Because if you can get yourself in alignment with a lot of these laws, it makes it a lot easier to excel and achieve. Now, one of those laws is the law of supply and demand. What the law of supply and demand states is that the greater the demand, the greater the supply needs to be. So if you've got 10,000 people all wanting Apple iPhones and you produce 9, the price increases because the demand is there. And you can keep the supply going if there's enough demand to keep, fulfilling that supply. And that's how businesses grow. But most people don't take that same law into their own lives. So most people say things like, Michael, I just want to be comfortable. That's the reason why you don't have what you want, because you're pushing against the law of supply and demand, which is a universal law. And that is that if there's greater demand, there'll need to be a greater supply, or demand creates supply. So unless we demand more of ourselves, we're not going to have the supply that we want. Now, if we walk into the gym and we lift heavy weights, we're putting a demand on our muscles. Therefore, the muscles grow, which is the supply of the muscle, in order to meet the demand of the stress that is created from the training. Now, most people don't think about that in their average life. Most people don't think that without the demand and the push or the need to create greater income, then most people never get ahead financially, because all that they do is there's demand there, they push hard, they create a greater supply of money financially, then they lose their drive, they become complacent, they seek this easy fucking life that they keep wanting, which is crazy and idiotic. It just tells me that they don't have a mission and they're not clear on their purpose and so on. And then all that happens is they self-sabotage, self-destruct, and they end up back in pain again, and then pain becomes their motivator. And so for the majority of the population, they will only do things when pain is there as a motivator. Now, if you have pain as a motivator, your brain then starts to create this craving of pleasure, and that pleasure then leads back to pain, and pain creates pleasure. And so the average person lives in a pleasure and pain model. And unfortunately, psychology reinforces this pattern, because most psychologists and most people who work in that field say humans are driven by pleasure. That is only true if they're in their most animalistic form. So rats do that. Mice do that, primitive animals do that, but humans have this beautiful part of the brain called a prefrontal cortex where we can think about our future, forward plan, and we can think about our mission and what we really want. And so we can go and chase after it. And that creates the demand for then us to get out there and to create this supply, whether it be a greater supply financially, whether it be create a greater supply of aerobic fitness or muscle mass, or whatever the challenge is that we're pushing against, which helps us to get stronger and to build things. Now, most people keep trying to break those laws, which is why they don't grow. I also see this so many times where I meet people and they say, oh, I should come and do one of your events. Now, I don't care whether they do our events or somebody else's events, or they read or they grow. But how do you expect to solve today's problems when you haven't become a greater version of yourself because you don't demand more from yourself? And if you're a business owner out there who's listening to this and you've got these goals and you've got these dreams and you're aspirational and you want to achieve this greater future and you've got this burning desire where you can be doing so much more in life, if you're one of those people who keep trying to avoid the demand that needs to be created so that you can keep achieving the things that you want in life, which is essentially a supply, then you're never going to get what you want. And what most people do is they learn just enough to get themselves out of pain, and then they end up back in pain again. And then they do just enough to get themselves out of pain, and then they end up back in pain again. This is also the reason why most people just get themselves just out of discomfort, and then they end up getting all comfortable, and then they end up back in discomfort again. And then most people go, well, I want to be comfortable. I want to have freedom. The only reason why people want freedom is because they keep trapping themselves in the stupid decisions that they make in life, which then they seek freedom. Then when they get free, it's normally a sabotage pattern, or it's gluttony, or one of the 7 other deadly sins that was spoken about for the last couple of thousand years, where we have this gluttony, or we live in excess, or we become lazy, which is sloth in the 7 deadly sins. And then all that happens is we fuck everything up and we end up back in the same position again with this pain and this stress, and it pushes us and forces us to grow because we won't grow by making the decision that we are just a growth-driven machine. What I've found is that those who achieve the greatest success in life are growth-driven machines. And they're not thinking about solving today's problems. They've already solved them. They're thinking about, who do I have to become in the future in order to achieve the life that I want? What type of leader do I need to become in my business to then grow the business to the level that I can manage? What are the processes and the systems and the infrastructure that I need to build in my business today so that I can grow it to the level that I want? What most people do is they grow their business and then go, shit, there's no infrastructure. There's no foundations, there's no management, there's no proper leadership. Fuck, and then they're all stressed and then they have all this pressure. Then they'll work really, really hard and grind, and then they get themselves out of pressure and they go, woo, freedom. And I'm going to get comfortable and I'm just going to chill out and I'm going to take a couple of weeks off and I'm going to go on holiday. And then bang, all the problems come back again, all the pressure comes back because their decision-making strategy sucks if they're a high achiever. You can't have that shitty decision-making strategy if you're someone who is truly committed to your goals. And most people aren't truly committed to their goals. They're committed to ease, comfort, simplicity, freedom, and all these other ideas, but they're only committed to that because they're trying to escape from the pain and the stress of the shitty decisions that they've been making their whole life. It's really, really obvious. I mean, I watch thousands of people do this every year because I talk to them over the phone and they say, I need to do something, and then they don't make the decision because it's too hard to make the decision today, and then they put it off, and then they stall, and then everything starts going well again, and then 6 months later, they're back in the shit again. And it's just these vicious cycles that most people create. And to them, it's normal. And they keep thinking, I'll figure it out myself. These are just patterns of behavior that don't really work for people. Not everybody's like it. There are some people out there who naturally figure out how to be successful in 1 or 2 areas in life, but very few people ever master life. Or I shouldn't even use the term master, but really get what they want out of life. Okay, there's not many. And it's because most people don't look at the gaps in their life and figure out, how do I need to grow into the next level of myself mentally, emotionally, physically, you could say spiritually or metaphysically or whatever it is that you want to call that. You need to keep growing into a greater you because today's you can't solve today's problems, but the future you who has already solved these problems can. So you have to keep growing your thinking and be ahead of the game, not be in the game all the time with today's problems. And that's the pattern of behavior that the majority of people have, which is the reason why the majority of people never ever get what they want. I've seen this happen my whole life. My parents are only 20 years older than me, or my dad's 20 years older, mum's 17 years older. A lot of their friends, a lot of my family have all had these big goals, these big aspirations. They've started businesses, they've destroyed businesses, they've had their careers, they've moved overseas, and then they end up almost back in the same position that they started in. Now, that's not all my family and all my parents' friends, but I've seen it happen for so long, which made me really inquisitive from a young age as to why this happens. Why is it that some people really excel and other people just keep doing the same shit that they've always done? And all that happens is they just keep destroying their self-worth. Because every year that goes past, when you have your birthday, when you have Christmas, when you have New Year's, and you've got to reflect back at the last 12 months and you sit there and you go, fuck, what happened? I just wasted 365 days and God knows how many hours of my life, by doing the same shit that I've always done. I'm back in the same position, whether it's financially, whether it's health-wise. Most people as they get older just get fatter. That just shows you that their decision-making process gets worse as they age. Now, some people say, oh yeah, but your metabolism slows down. Some of the current research says your metabolism doesn't slow down until a lot later on than what they thought. I've also seen that providing you exercise and train effectively and efficiently, you can keep your metabolism high for a lot longer than what we thought. Also, if you do the right things, you can keep things like testosterone higher and so on. So we can make different decisions that then change the outcomes of the average. But most people keep looking at the average, comparing themselves to the average, yet they have big goals and big dreams and big aspirations, and they look up to people who are achieving great things. But when it comes to committing to different decisions, they don't think about the decisions that high achievers make. They look at the decisions that average people around them make. And I hear this all the fucking time, where someone says, oh, I'm overworking, I've been working too much, I've done a 40-hour week this week. The people that are achieving in the top 1%, they're all working a lot longer than that. They might be working differently and they might be working more effectively, but they're still working, they're still thinking about things, they're just thinking about things in a different way. They're prioritizing things differently. So I hope this episode really makes you think about, are you growing into the person that you need to be in order to solve today's problems? Or is today's you trying to solve today's problems, which is the reason why you're fucking stuck? Because if that's the case, then you have to decide, do you really want your dreams? Do you really want your goals? Do you really have that burning desire to want to live a great life? Because if you don't, that's okay. You just got to admit it to yourself, and there's no problem with that. But I assume if you're listening to this podcast and you've been following my stuff and you're part of our Driven Mofo Business Hacks Facebook group and all of this sort of stuff, you're probably driven to achieve a lot more. But what you've got to not do anymore is compare yourself to the average. When you're thinking, oh, I need to have some time off tonight and I need to relax and I need to chill out and I need a holiday and all this sort of stuff, do you really? Or are you just doing what everybody else does because when everybody else is burnt out and tired, they just give up and look for a way to escape? Instead of actually figuring out why you're burnt out, why you're stressed out, why you keep putting pressure on yourself, and changing the mindset and the mentality and the psychology behind it, and prioritizing your time more effectively, making better decisions so that you're kicking ass. I very rarely meet people who burn out when they're kicking ass. People burn out when they are hitting rock bottom, when they're going downhill, when things aren't working out, when they're not making decisions, when they're going around in circles, when they can't commit to things. All of those things normally cause burnout, but this is just most people in our society. So you have to make that decision about how you want to behave, how you want to act. Now, you can come along to one of my Thrive Time events. I give a money back guarantee because I know that thing will fucking set people up for the right mentality to achieve and to get the results that they want. Now, you can shoot me a message or you can jump on our website and jump into that. Or if you're one of those driven mofos who's really trying to grow a business from anywhere between a couple $100,000 turnover a year up to $10 million, if that's you, shoot me a message and we'll chat about our business odyssey as well. Because these are a group of driven mofos who are committed to consistently growing instead of staying stuck. Now, one of the consistent things I hear from those attendees is that people say you work too much. Now, they don't feel like they're working too much. It's all the average people around them who are projecting that shit onto them. I hear people say, you need a holiday. They don't need a fucking holiday. They look younger than most of the people who have been working hard but hardly getting anywhere in their lives. Like I know some of my friends, they look about 20 years older than me because they keep doing the same shit that's not working for them and it burns them out. It makes them feel older. It makes them age a lot faster. Stress and distress makes us age a lot faster. And that happens quite a lot when we're unclear, ineffective, indecisive. All of those things happen to burn us out because we're not doing the things that we need to do in order to achieve the life that we want. One of the greatest gifts that we can give ourselves is the commitment to ourselves and the dedication to ourselves that we're going to do whatever it takes in order to achieve the things that we want. Because when we do, we'll live a life that most other people just fucking dream of, or look up on Facebook and go, I'll have that one day. But the truth is they never will. They'll never even get close to it. Anyway, Driven Mofos, I hope this helps. I hope this is a bit of a pep talk so that you can just start making way better decisions. I know if you're listening to this stuff, you probably want to do that. And you are probably someone who is doing things that are a little bit different. But, most people just have excuses. They blame, they complain, they justify. If it's not the economy, if it's the economy, it's their partner. Their partner doesn't want them to do something. If it's not that, it's not the right time. If it's not that, they don't have the money. And then they just keep going around in circles. It's that whole pleasure and pain cycle just repeating on itself over and over and over again. It's a lack of decision making because they're afraid of making mistakes. They're afraid of failing. They're afraid of wasting time. And at the same time, they're wasting time, which is stressing them out because they realize that they're just marking off the days for whatever fucking reason and that they're never going to have the life that they want. And there's this consistent conflict in their head of here's a great life that I want. But at the same time, I'm afraid of failing. I'm afraid of making decisions. I'm afraid of committing to things. I'm afraid of growing. What happens if things don't work? What happens if people judge me? What happens if people criticize me? And they have all these inner conflicts, which then just fuck up their head, cause them to stress out, and then they want to escape. They want to get away from things. They want to have comfort, ease. And then again, it stops that whole law of supply and demand. And without the law of supply and demand, you don't get growth. Anyway, I hope that helps, Driven Mofos. A massive thank you to everyone who has been joining our Facebook group, the No BS Business Hacks for Driven Mofos. It has been cranking. I just dropped a couple more videos in this week as well. If you haven't jumped across on marketing, I've got one coming tomorrow on operations and operational efficiency and leadership. So please make sure you jump in that group, especially if you're a business owner and you're really serious about growing your business. We've been cranking in that group. Awesome for everyone who is in there. Thank you very much for joining it. If you haven't already joined it, it's free. Just jump across in there, but you've got to be a business owner and you've got to be someone who wants to grow the business. You can just get in the search bar and type in Driven Mofo Business Hacks and it'll pop up. Anyway, the reason why I do this is that most people waste their lives. Just don't want you to be one of them. Remember, Driven Mofos, never underestimate the dream. And I'll see you in the Mojo Facebook group or the Driven Mofos Facebook group. Also, if you've got any questions, shoot them across, or you want me to talk about any topics in relation to human performance, growing a business, growing financially. It's all human behavior stuff. So shoot me a message. I'd love to answer those questions on a podcast. Anyway, take care, Driven Mofos. Have a great day.